Yo, who likes Godzilla? Well, duh, everybody likes Godzilla. Godzilla needs no introduction. And I'm not joking, I mean he needs no introduction. Everybody knows what Godzilla is. He's a big lizard. He was created by Toho in 1954 for the film Godzilla, or as they call it over there, Gojira. I'm probably fucking butchering that. But yeah, Godzilla, he created quite literally the longest running film franchise ever. Again, he needs no introduction, which is why I'm not going to give him an introduction. But all I'm going to tell you is that we're looking at the 1954 Toho Classic Godzilla. There are a whole bunch of different cuts of the film, most notably the American version, which cuts out over 30 minutes of footage and adds in a whole bunch of new footage with American actors. And then there's the far superior Japanese cut, which is what we'll be looking at today, which tells a much better story than the American cut ever did. I've loved Godzilla ever since I was a kid, so I've been jonesing to do a review of this movie. I'm also a big King Kong fan, so kaijus have always been a big part of my childhood in general. This video was partially spurred on by Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla Minus One, two of the more recent movies in their respective series. I love kaiju movies, so let's talk about the one that started it all. Well, technically King Kong came out in 1933, but that wasn't really a kaiju movie like Godzilla was. Like, it kinda was, but that was much more of an action-adventure movie with Skull Island and then taking Kong back to New York for science. Plus, Kong wasn't even that big in the first movie. Godzilla towered over that motherfucker. Kong was only 24 feet tall, meanwhile Godzilla was over 100. Weirdly enough, King Kong is shockingly small scale compared to his lizard brother. The movie opens with stomping and a title card drop with a scream. Honestly, this is a fantastic way to open with the credits. I fucking love it. More screams ensue over the credits, with the film's fantastic soundtrack slowly coming in. Seriously, every kaiju movie is somewhat inspired by this film's soundtrack. When I think of Godzilla, I think of the soundtrack by Akira Ikufube. To get Godzilla's screams, they used a resin-coated glove and rubbed it up and down a double bass, and then reverberated the recorded sound. Godzilla's footsteps were created by taking a kettle drum and smacking the shit out of it with some knotted ropes. It cuts to a group of sailors on a ship as a massive explosion is seen and destroys the entire thing. The work of none other than Godzilla. The miniature ship on fire and then sinking into the water is really good too. I gotta say, the miniature work in this movie is amazing. I counted 17 deaths. Put it on the tally. Then cuts to our protagonist, Hideto Ogata, who gets a call to investigate the supposed accident that transpired from his boss. The scene also introduces his girlfriend Amiko, who he was supposed to go on a date with to the cinema, but he has to bail on their plans, because business comes before love every time. It cuts to a very brief scene explaining where the ship was last, and then it cuts to another smaller ship getting blown up. This ship is also owned by the same company as the previous one, so this company is fucked. Basically. It cuts to the company that owns the boat saying that they've sent out a search crew to find survivors, and are telling this to the families in front of them of the people on that boat, because, you know, you gotta save face when two of your ships explode. 3 survivors are found, but the boat that found them meets the same fate as the other boats as discovered over Telegram. The number of people in the second boat is unknown, but since there were 3 initial survivors, but it's implied that there were more people on the boat, I'll add the minimum possible of 1 extra person to our kill tally. Including people on the rescue vessel, that means we'll add another 10 to the tally total. Drax really has his work cut out for him today. A raft is discovered with a man named Masagi on it. He says that it was a monster what done him in, and he then promptly dies. Local fishermen in a town are unable to catch any fish off the coast, and an old man believes it to be the work of Godzilla. There is a quick scene later that night with some kind of ritual. The old man explains to a young man that it is a way to keep Godzilla from invading. He says many years ago they used to sacrifice people to stop Godzilla. This man just admitted to being part of a lizard death cult and they just gloss over it. It's never brought up again. Later that night, the town is attacked by Godzilla. The old man has been vindicated. A house is destroyed. There are 3 people in it, Shinkichi, as well as 2 of his family members. His family is killed. He survives, however. It is then revealed in a courtroom that there were 9 deaths in total, so I guess put those on the tally too. People in the courtroom give their accounts of the destruction caused by what they refer to as some kind of animal, not to be confused with Metallica's Some Kind of Monster from their worst album. Professor Kyohei Yamane leads an expedition to the destroyed town with a group of men including Ogata and his girlfriend Amiko. They find the town's water sources to be contaminated with radiation and find the footprint of Godzilla. The professor starts rooting through the footprint filled with radioactive water like a fucking dumbass and finds a fossilized trilobite. What are you talking about? He'll be fine. I do this shit all the time. See, look at this. Nothing bad's happening. Nothing bad is gonna happen. See, nothing happened. Look. Oh, shit. Then the monster comes back over the mountains and then goes back into the water. That was kind of anticlimactic. He just kind of did nothing. This thing is fucking terrifying, though. Say what you want about the special effects, but at the time, not only was this impressive, it was nothing like anyone had ever seen before. Because they didn't use stop motion for his movements and instead used a guy in a suit, his movements were very smooth and lifelike for the time, which, you know, that's pretty scary. People are used to jittery shit, and then Godzilla comes about and it's like, oh damn, that boy can move. He got moves like Jagger. The professor then comes back with his findings. He explains Godzilla has been awoken by an atomic bomb blast, and that is why he has suddenly resurfaced. He also explains that the creature is 50 meters tall. Plenty of people have pointed this out over the years, but a creature of the size of Godzilla could never exist out of water since it would be crushed under its own weight. They could exist underwater, however, where it can swim around and do sea creature shit like that, but it would most certainly die on land. As a kid, I was really relieved when I found this out because I was kind of terrified of Godzilla for a while. What's funny, though, is Professor Yamane states that the Jurassic period from which Godzilla comes from was 2 million years ago. Now, when you look at the calendar here, that's actually about 143.5 million years off from the actual Jurassic period. But that's neither here nor there. He also explains due to the atomic blast, Godzilla has absorbed a fuck ton of radiation, meaning that is why he's leaving such high amounts of it in his wake. The government decides to use depth charges to kill the beast, but since we're not even 30 minutes into the film, you know that's not going to work. The professor, upon hearing this, however, is pissed since he didn't want to kill Godzilla. For some reason, PETA would love this dude. Apparently he wants to study it. Somehow. His daughter, Amiko, yes, Amiko is his daughter, that's why she joined him and Ogata to investigate, tries to comfort him. However, he just wants to sit in his room and sulk in the dark and silence like an angsty teenager. Gosh, get out of my room! I just want to sulk about the death of a creature that could destroy the entire planet that we created through our own atomic hubris. Next, we meet Dr. Serizawa. Technically, we saw him when Ogata, Amiko, and Professor Yamane went to the Trash City. He watched them as they left on the boat. But we never actually really got to introduce to him properly until now. Serizawa likes Amiko, but Amiko is dating Ogata, and Yamane wants Serizawa to marry Amiko. Ooh, a love triangle, my favorite. This plot point honestly just kind of goes nowhere, though, so don't worry about it. We're just going to throw it off to the wayside. Just throw it in the trash. A news reporter and Amiko go to visit Dr. Serizawa to ask him about his research and if he can help them stop Godzilla. The reporter asks about Serizawa's research, and Serizawa doesn't give him any information, because, duh, he's never met this guy. It's top secret research. The reporter leaves, but Amiko stays behind and asks Serizawa about his research, and the dude takes her to his secret lab full of fish tanks. He then goes up to a fish tank, drops a pellet in one of them, pulls a lever, and all the fish die. I counted 15 fish in the tank, but I can't be 100% sure since of how cloudy the water is, so I'll just say 15 and call it a day, you know? This isn't that serious. It's fish, okay? Hundreds of fish die every minute. I don't care. Now, Grex, you can put that on the telly. That's right, I'm counting animals, bitch. Kill count would never do that shit. For obvious reasons, this is going to become a problem in later videos, I can already tell. Amiko comes back to her father's home where Ogata and Shinkichi are waiting for her. Shinkichi, you know, that one kid who watched his family get crushed by the house under Godzilla's big honking foot. Yeah, he's been living with Amiko and her father, Professor Yamane, since then, I guess. It's just kind of explained later. They explain it at some point, but I'm just telling you now. Anyway, after seeing that fucked up fish stuff, Amiko is rather horrified and doesn't want to talk to anyone, which is fair. If it was 1954 and I just saw something that I'd only ever heard of in stories and comic books and sci-fi films, I'd be pretty terrified too. For me, however, the year is 2025. Something like that doesn't even faze me with the shit I've seen in the last 9 or so years. Seriously, ever since Harambe, things have gone to shit. Godzilla then trashes the city as Ogata, Amiko, Yamane, and Shinkichi watch in horror. He picks up a train, then throws it back down as he waves through the buildings to the center of town, and he also destroys a bridge. I didn't count any actual deaths since it looks like everyone got out of the train, including the conductors, who I don't even know how they survived that head-on collision, but I really want to focus on the miniature work in Godzilla's costume here for a minute. These are some beautiful pieces of art being destroyed. Originally, the film's special effects director, Eiji Tsuburaya, wanted to use stop motion, but didn't have the resources or time to do so instead he created the method of suitmation, with an actor in a monster suit destroying miniatures. Honestly, I think the suitmation 100% ages and looks better than stop motion ever did from that time period. While some stop motion was used, almost all the destruction caused by Godzilla was a guy in a suit who had to endure 140-degree heat and passed out multiple times due to the hot stage lights that he was under. The miniatures are frankly amazing, and Godzilla is pretty well melded in the shot with people running away from him. It looks pretty solid. Now granted, this is black and white, so it's a lot easier to hide imperfections. But still, it looks really good, especially for the time. The military then comes up with a plan to fry the beast by electrifying some electrical towers near the coastline with 50,000 volts, which is just a little less than
1.21 gigawatts!
They also evacuate most of the surrounding cities as well. Professor Yamane is still distraught that the government wants to kill Godzilla and gets into a fight with Ogata about it. However, soon after, Godzilla is spotted on the coastline. At first, it seems like their plan works, with Godzilla howling in pain, until he whips out his new ability of Fire Breath and straight up melts the electrical towers. He then nukes 10 people as well. Mark that on the tally. He burns down some more buildings and explodes these chemical towers, which causes 2 fire trucks to crash in what can only be described as Hot Wheels toys flipping over.
Did you see the pool? They flipped the bitch!
I don't know if you can say Godzilla even killed these people technically. It's more like the explosion spooked them or some shit, and that's why they crashed. If it wasn't for the action figures hanging off the side, this wouldn't look that bad, but because they just had to put them there, it really does not hold up. One of the few times special effects in this movie just look bad. That and Godzilla's cold, dead cartoon character eyes, which they never fix in later films, despite all other monsters never having that problem. Looks like he has fucking googly eyes. It throws me off so much. I can only count 4 deaths, however, as the first fire truck just crashes into a building, but the second one flips pretty violently, and I simply don't think anyone's surviving that. Those guys got fucking ragdolled. Godzilla then kills 2 more dudes in a car. Godzilla then gets into a boxing match with a clock tower and kills 6 more people in the process who get pancake flapjacked by falling debris. Which, interesting side note here, you can actually see that the people on screen are see-through. That is because they are double exposing the film, which makes it so you can put 2 separate scenes on top of each other. The only issue is that the second scene laid over top isn't as exposed, causing things on screen to appear see-through. Yeah, remember, this was before blue screen even, so this was the only way we were going to get this to work. Oh, also put those on the tally. Godzilla then trashes the city some more and kills a group of reporters on a radio tower. 8 people fall to their deaths, and hey look, those action figures falling don't look half bad. I knew they could do it. Then the Air Force comes along and starts blasting at Godzilla.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
And then the foul beast is vanquished and runs away like a little bitch for the time being. It then cuts to the aftermath of the attack at a hospital. A child is seen testing positive for high levels of radiation, and a woman is carted off on a stretcher while Amiko comforts the woman's daughter. Amiko later talks to Ogata and tells him what she saw in Serizawa's lab. We get more of an explanation on his device and learn through flashback that he created what he calls the Oxygen Destroyer, a device that splits oxygen atoms into fluids, and everything killed by it dies from asphyxiation. He also explains that by dropping one of those pellets into the Tokyo Bay, he could turn it into a literal graveyard. That is his quote, not mine. Amiko and Ogata then go to Serizawa's private abode to ask Serizawa to let them use the Oxygen Destroyer to kill Godzilla. Serizawa, for obvious reasons, does not like that idea, as he believes unleashing it would lead to more harm than good if it fell into government hands. He is, however, eventually convinced to let them use it, saying that this will be his first and last time the Oxygen Destroyer will ever be used outside of his experiments. Later, Serizawa and Ogata put on diving suits, dive into the ocean, then drop the Oxygen Destroyer, and Serizawa says goodbye over radio and cuts his tether to the surface, killing himself and Godzilla so that the device can never be used again. The film ends with everyone mourning the loss of their friend, and Professor Yamane speaking to himself about how even though Godzilla was the last of his species, maybe another will be created once more through atomic testing. And so that was Toho's Godzilla. Not only does it deserve the acclaim from both fans of the franchise and critics alike, it also spawned the longest-running film franchise of all time, basically invented its own genre of monster movie, became one of the most recognizable faces in all of pop culture. Seriously, walk up to any man, woman, or child, and they will know what Godzilla is. And most dads from the 1970s and 80s will first think of the song by Blue Öyster Cult. Well, anyway, the most important thing was that this was just a damn good movie to boot in general. So, before I get to my full final thoughts, let's talk about the deaths, shall we? 68 people, 15 fish, and 1 kaiju died in Godzilla. 67 were male, 1 was female. The fish genders are unknown because how the hell am I supposed to tell that from a movie, from just one clip? And Godzilla's gender is unknown. Some say male, some say female. That's a discussion for another day. I'm going to give the coolest death to those guys on the radio tower, as not only was it a creative death, because I haven't seen many people fall off a radio tower in movies by a giant lizard, it also just looked the best out of most of the deaths I found. Yeah, the fish deaths were pretty unique and cool, Godzilla's death was pretty impactful, and of course Serizawa's death was very emotional, but if we're going over cool and flashiness, having all those guys fall off the thing, and then having the thing crumple and fall more, that's just cool looking, you know? I'm gonna give the lamest death, however, to those bastards in the fire truck. I can't even actually prove if those 4 guys died. I'm just going off of vibes saying, I don't think they're surviving that one, you know? Okay, back to my final thoughts. The special effects are amazing, the acting is on point, the writing is spectacular. This movie does something that a lot of American Godzilla movies don't anymore. The characters, they feel like people, they show emotion. They are just as important as the big lizard on the cover. When somebody dies, it feels like somebody actually died. Too many times when I watch modern movies, specifically action movies and horror movies, when a character dies, I go, who was that? Take notes, American Godzilla. You are floundering compared to Dusty Crusty 54 over there, who hasn't even been in a universe that's actually active since 1975, when the Showa era ended with Terror of Mechagodzilla. He is dancing on your premature grave. Are you just gonna take that? The movie is an allegory for World War II and the atomic bomb. Japan was ravaged by the attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Godzilla is an allegory for the bomb that was created by man as he was created in the film. Even in his original design, he was depicted to have a mushroom cloud-shaped head until they realized how goofy that looked, but the film still gets across its point very concisely and very well with its themes of World War II and the atomic bomb and the effects it can cause on people and the area around it. The special effects, even when not the greatest, are still impressive for the time, and even now in a lot of respects. I think we all share the same sort of visceral feeling when we watch big monsters smashing up cities and ripping them apart with their bare hands. It teleports me almost back to a time when I was about 6 or 7, and I first saw Godzilla. I wanted to be him. I'd build towers with my toys and Legos, and I'd start smashing them up and wrecking up the place like some primordial, evil, chaotic Richard Nixon. Arroo. I think there's a visceral feeling, a primal urge that we all have to want to do that. And I think that everybody, when they watch Godzilla movies, all feel that collectively. And in conclusion, I call that feeling big lizard smash thing look cool.